Representative Rhonda Fields was among a select group of lawmakers on hand when President Obama announced several executive actions addressing gun control this week. Included in the White House plans are a rule addressing background checks, funding for new ATF agents, and a proposal investing $500 million to mental health care access. Patty, this made huge headlines throughout the nation this week, and Representative Rhonda Fields, who plays a big role on that issue here in Colorado, also played on the national stage. What did you think?
Well, it actually looked like Obama was playing off Colorado's playbook, because what he came down with in the executive order was very much what Colorado has already done, although not going quite as far. She, of course, wasn't the only Coloradan in the audience. We had the people who were the two legislators who were recalled there because, for whatever reason, whether it was because they didn't respond to their constituents or simply because they had pushed gun legislation, they lost their seats. I'm sorry to say that one other legislator wasn't there, Jerry Sonnenberg, who came up with the incredible analogy of equating Obama's tears to oiling an assault weapon that's going to kill 6- and 7-year-olds. We should not just have permits and licenses for guns. We should have them for legislators before they tweet. Are you kidding me, to be that cynical about it? The suggestion that Obama, who has overseen horror after horror. I mean, you can talk to John Hickenlooper about what it's like to preside over funeral services and have to talk about multiple murders by guns. Maybe these stopgap measures wouldn't have prevented that, but if they prevent any, good.
It's nice at least to be able to see a safety mechanism on a Twitter feed for a legislator. I would definitely support that. Mike, these executive actions aren't new laws. I mean, there's differences there, but when it comes to just the public point of view, it seems like it's almost a late Christmas gift for Republicans looking to fundraise 2016. Does it go beyond that for Republicans when you look at these issues?
I think it should be very good for fundraising for Second Amendment advocacy groups, and might be good for Republicans. But let's back over. Well, first off, Representative Fields was clearly not a political prop for this thing. She actually has a very compelling and personal backstory with regard to guns. Even though she is wrong on the policy end of it, she has a very tragic story to tell. So she's an ideal figure for this kind of event. That said, the Obama, I think the real impact of what he did was a masterful piece of political theater, because all he had to do was suggest that he was going to take a unilateral executive action on guns, and he fired up the gun control base and the progressive base, tied Republicans up in knots over how to respond to this, fired up gunnies, maybe inadvertently, but that was just fallout from it. But at the end of the day, after all the sound and fury, he did remarkably little. I mean, some of these executive actions were merely suggestions. Some, like expanding personnel for expanded personnel, or just to make sure that the existing background check laws are done in a timely and thorough manner, which is the least we should expect from our government in the first place. So what he really did was take over the news cycle for a week, and everything else went off. ISIS? I haven't heard a word about ISIS in a week. So it was a brilliant piece of theater that at the end of the day accomplishes very little in terms of actual new law or regulation for gun control.
Eric, Mike raises a good point. I mean, it took a lot to knock Donald Trump off the headlines for a week, but this really certainly did it. Do you think this will have impact on the election, whether it be Hillary Clinton or the Republican candidates or even down-ticket races?
Surely. I mean, guns are a dividing line issue between the two parties in this country, and both of them appeal very strongly to their respective bases. I think Mike is right in the sense of this was much ado about not all that much. The substance of these executive orders was very, very modest. I struggle with this issue. On the one hand, I'm anything but a Second Amendment absolutist. Whether it's the Colorado laws or the substance of this executive orders, I have no problem with them on substance. I do think something that is missed in this dialogue is the notion of process. And there is increasingly an ethic in this country on both sides of the political aisle that all ends justify all means. And we have seen out of this president, as well as previous presidents, but it's been intensified under this president, and particularly in this final months and years of his term, a proclivity to use executive orders, where even in years past he said he couldn't do that because this was subject to congressional action. There is an increasing consolidation of power in this country in the executive and away from the legislature. And no matter how dysfunctional Congress might be, and no matter how much people might despise or dislike Congress, they still are the elected legislative branch of this government. So I think the net effect of all this is to increase polarization in this country, to decrease any sense or any hope of good faith or collaboration. And don't forget, lastly, that one day there's going to be a Republican sitting in the Oval Office, whether that's 12 months from now or 4 or 5 years from now or 9, 10 years from now. The pendulum does swing in this country. And not only can that Republican, obviously with the stroke of a pen, undo these executive orders, but he or she can use that same kind of consolidated executive power in ways that current fans of these executive orders will find very frightening.
Natasha, this did seem, I felt a little bit about it, that Obama understood that his legacy is now becoming a bigger deal for him to do. He only have a few months left, and really the election's going to begin to really eat at all the attention. So there's only a few months left to do something, and this seemed like a big issue to do something about it. Does this speak to his legacy? Was there enough there to do that?
I think the speech was entirely about his legacy. And interestingly enough, too, in the speech, he referred to the Affordable Care Act as Obamacare as well. So two items related to his legacy came out in that speech. You know, talking about guns for me personally is so difficult. I mean, I basically grew up in ranch land USA. Everyone had guns. They used them for the most part overwhelmingly responsibly. They use them to hunt. They use them to feed their family with that food. They go through gun safety. I mean, everyone in high school went through gun safety. That's just how it is. But that's so I understand the right to bear arms and how important it is to protect that, and how people are really fighting in this country to do that for good reasons. However, I think Obama's speech also raised a great awareness of the rights that we're losing as a result of this too. And so taking the step back to say, all right, what are we giving up in the opportunity of keeping this right, and what does that mean for our future? And I think what was interesting to me, and we know Obama is a very good debater. He's a very good at the art of argument at a time in our country and in individual conversations we're not very good at it. He brought back the subtlety. Instead of a sledgehammer, it was more like a foam mallet of, all right, folks, we're going to talk about this, and this is going to be part of my legacy, and we are going to continue to have conversations. But nothing that he said was really revolutionary or so new that people who weren't already going to get upset about it, they were going to get upset about it. But it raised some conversational points for the rest of us to perhaps have conversations with perhaps some of the people that I grew up with about how do we do this? How does this look in Denver, Colorado, and New York, and in Chicago, and in North Dakota?